the stage. Look, your dreams can become reality faster than you think. And for this, in today's video, I'm going to talk about the 3 resources you need to finish your dissertation in 1 year or less. Because I know a lot of doctoral students are looking to finish and want to finish quickly, but sometimes the doctoral program experience can make it seem so insurmountable. So in today's episode, I'm going to demystify some of that and talk about 3 resources that you're going to need to fast track and speed up this process so that you can finish quickly. For those just tuning in, my name is Dr. Ramon Goings. I am founder of Done Dissertation, and our whole goal at Done Dissertation is to demystify the dissertation process so that you, the doctoral student, can write and defend your dissertation in 1 year or less. Today's episode of From ABD to PhD Show is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It is a coaching experience with the goal to help you finish your dissertation within the next year. So if you are working on your dissertation right now, there should be no reason why this time next year, if you're even at just the very beginning, that you should not be done. But if you've been twirling around with this and been stuck for a while, we want to help you fast track that process. Or if you're someone who is getting ready to start writing a dissertation and just know, like, look, I don't want to be stuck. I don't have time to waste. We are the place for you because we want to work with people who are motivated, who are ready to do the work, who are ready to be in community with one another, and are ready to leverage this doctorate after they finish. So if that is you, and that sounds intriguing to you, I would invite you to work with us and apply to our program. You can learn more about our program and apply. You can scan the QR code that's on your screen, or you can go to www.velocitydissertation.com. And again, it's www.velocitydissertation.com. And whoever's watching this, if you can, just drop the link in wherever you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. I really would appreciate it. And for my folks who are catching this wherever you are, make sure that you like and subscribe. If you're on LinkedIn, share this out to your feed as well as on Facebook. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you know when future episodes and other videos that we put out are available for you for access. And so I'm really excited about today's episode because this is something that I want you all to do. I want people to finish their dissertations quickly. I know that I've done it myself, and I've helped so many other doctoral students in our programs do it too. And sometimes just about having some key resources in place that will help propel you to finish quickly, because it's going to be different than maybe a lot of how you've been trained or thought through this dissertation process. And so I'm going to give you 3 of these components that really will help fast track you. And so when we're thinking about this, the first resource that you're going to need if you want to finish your dissertation within the next year is you are going to need a plan. Look, I know you've been thinking like, oh, I have a plan. And all the times when I ask doctoral students, well, what's your plan entail? They just say, you know what, Dr. Goins, I'm going to write chapter 1, then I'm going to write chapter 2. And like, that's not a plan. You really need to have things spelled out, because what I've come to know that if you've been stagnant on your dissertation writing so far and you haven't made the progress you've wanted to, the plan you've had in place has not worked. Once you come to that realization, then you can be reflective and say, all right, what do I need to do to change this so I can have a different outcome? And for some of y'all, it might be getting more help and more support, right? And so when we're thinking about the plan, when you consistently say, hey, I'm just going to write, let's say, for instance, chapter 3, like a methods chapter, right? I'm going to write the methods chapter. That's part of a plan. But then my question to you back is, all right, when are you going to do that? How are you going to do it? And what does that all entail? You know, sometimes we think about these chapters as being such big things, but we should just consider it being, hey, I know I have to write chapter 3, the methods chapter, but I know the methods chapter has about 8 or 9 sections. So now when we start to backwards map, what does this chapter look like? We can outline what the sections are. Now we can start assigning deadlines and dates to writing each section. So it no longer becomes about writing a whole chapter. It becomes about knocking off each of the sections of the dissertation. And before you know it, you have a working draft of the chapter. Once you have a working draft, it's then easy for them to edit and do all those things to move the process forward. But a lot of you all are stuck just because you haven't even planned that part out of the process. It's just like, I'm going to approach this, and just like coursework, because many of us did this. I did this. You know, I'll find a day, I'll write that paper for class, and I'll turn it in. And that's the process sometimes we approach our dissertation with. And you probably have realized very quickly that that is not necessarily the best and most effective approach to have with writing the dissertation. So, you know, when you think about your plan, you got to think about the writing. But this becomes very important because when you're doing your dissertation, you have to think about when you want to graduate. So, you know, let's say, for instance, your graduation target date is, let's say, May of 2024, let's say, for instance, but that might be when you want to graduate. But you know that probably dissertations maybe have to be submitted to your graduate school for final review and approval maybe a month before that. So now we're like at April of 2024. But now, in order to submit your dissertation to the graduate school, you have to defend it most likely or get it approved by your dissertation committee. So that might need to happen probably in sometime in March. From there, if you want your committee to, and you have a final defense or whatever your process might be, if you want to have that done around March, that means you need to have your document done into maybe your dissertation committee by February. Now, if you're at that point, then if you backwards map this thing out, hey, I need to have it to my committee in February, but first I got to get it through my chair. So I might need to have it to my chair for review in January. So you see, it's not just about anymore, I'm going to graduate May. It's about like all these dates. It's just the backwards map. But when I ask a lot of doctoral students, do you know the policies of your university? Many do not. And so this is something I want you to consider when we think about resources. Part of your plan is understanding the dynamic and landscape of what you are having your process in. So you need to know what are the requirements of your program, and then with the university at large, because some of you all might be going to bigger universities where it's a graduate school who has oversight on some of these things. So you need to start figuring out when are things due. I have these conversations with my doctoral students all the time. We kind of backwards map of how and when we want to graduate, and then we can start planning deadlines and timelines accordingly. But for many of you all, you don't have the plan in place, so it just becomes very difficult to do it because you just don't know how to do it. And this is exactly what we do in our Velocity coaching program, is that we help folks kind of get that plan together. And once you have the plan, you'd be surprised about how much you can do in such a short amount of time. And I know some of you folks might feel like, oh, this is, amazing, but it's no way that this really happens. But I always like to give receipts because I'm always, I want to show you all. This way I can show you through our clients who have been successful in understanding and implemented the strategies that we teach. And so I'm going to bring up Dr. Sorensen. We had an interview some while back. We were talking about her doctoral journey. And this is one piece, it's about 30 seconds, but she talks about how much she was able to accomplish within such a short amount of time. I want to give this as an example of what can be done when you have approached and navigated this process the right way. So I want to introduce you to Dr. Sorensen, and she'll talk briefly about her own journey and what she was able to do in a very short amount of time.
At the beginning of this, I had done all my data collection and I was in the process of coding everything, but I hadn't written any of my I ended up writing 6 more chapters of my dissertation. In really, like, when I put everything together, it was like really in 2 months that I wrote like 6 chapters. And that's huge. That's like, when I look back on it, I'm kind of amazed at how much I was able to accomplish in such a short amount of time.
And I share that because when we think about these things, for Dr. Sorensen, just give you some insight about her experience when she worked with us last year. She's a mother, has young children, so is working full-time doctoral student, and was writing the dissertation. And when she worked with us, she actually had gotten COVID. Like, all these things have happened, right? And so part of her journey that she talks about in the full kind of video when we had our conversation was just all these obstacles that she overcame. So her time really got shrunken because of all these other situations that popped up. And literally, she was able to write her findings chapters, which ended up being 5 findings chapters plus her discussion chapter within about 2 months with us. So she worked with us from, it was like in July of 2022, and she defended her dissertation around October of 2022. So it doesn't take long. Dr. Sorensen is not a unique case. Our clients do these type of things all the time. And you'd be surprised, again, how much you can do when you have a plan. And when you have a plan, you're able to adapt. That's one of the things I really appreciate about Dr. Sorensen. She was able to adapt her plan when things didn't go according. Health, we can't do anything if our health isn't right. So she made sure her health was correct and right. And then she was able to do the work and engage in the process. And now she's done and has a great career that she started now with her doctorate in her research area on supporting refugees. It's just amazing what you can do when you have a structure in place and when you have that plan. So as we're thinking about 3 resources to finish your dissertation in 1 year or less, you have to have a plan in place. And if you're someone you haven't figured out quite yet what's your plan or how to put it in place, or if you're approaching a dissertation and want to kind of map it out, we have a training that is available for you. It's called Design Your Done Dissertation. It is a virtual workshop that you have access to in this training that we teach you our strategy on how to build out your plan. It comes with a workbook that actually helps you map out all the components of the plan so that you can start to map everything out. It'll be helpful as a guide to then have conversations with your dissertation chair and committee members so you can really get the insights that you might need to get that plan in place, because it makes no sense if you're going to spend all this time being stuck to not have a plan. So now, if you're ready to be done and you want to have a plan in place, this is the starting point that you can. So if you scan the QR code that is on your screen, or you can go to www.designyourdissertation.com, and I will put another link up for you all. And if you're watching this live, go ahead and just drop a link in the chat for me so you can grab it. But again, it's www.designyourdissertation.com to grab this training. If you're a current Velocity client, you happen to be watching this video, don't worry, you'll have access to this. You don't need to purchase because you're already working with us in our programs. And so with that said, it's really important as we start to consider the resources that you might need to finish quickly. What we know from working with so many clients is that you have to have a plan in place. That's why we created Design Your Done Dissertation, because we know that's the foundation to finishing the rest of this process. And if you're someone who says, I need a plan, but I need that help and support along the way in addition to that plan, then I would invite you to apply to our Velocity coaching program, which you can learn more about at www.velocitydissertation.com. It's a coaching experience designed to help you write and defend your dissertation within 1 year. You follow our strategies, you do what we ask you to do, and you implement and execute, because we're not writing dissertations for you. So if you're looking for that, definitely do not apply to work with us. But if you're looking for support and a guide, we are here to support you and can help get you to the finish line. So if you want that type of support, scan the QR code here on your screen, or you can visit www.velocitydissertation.com, who is today's sponsor for our episode from ABD to PhD show. And so when we consider, having a plan, the second resource that you will need to finish your dissertation in 1 year or less is that you will need a community. Because one thing I've come to know is that the dissertation is indeed a team sport. There is no longer, you can approach this process saying, I'm just going to do everything myself by myself. That's just not how it goes. You can get it done for sure. I've seen people do it. It just takes a real long time. And I know if you're trying to finish quickly, we're giving you the inside scoop on how to finish quickly. And so you need a community. You need that support. But you need a community in a very different way. So sometimes we think about community, we think about, all right, I need my team in place. I need my dissertation committee, right? That's a part of your community. You need those people because they're the gatekeepers. They're the ones that are going to get you through this process. And this is something in our programs, we teach you how to select wisely, or even if you've already selected these people, and how to then, revitalize your relationship with your chair and committee. But beyond that, you need what I call your reality check partner and your accountability partner. I talk more about that in the book, 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation. It's a short, actionable book where you can implement, and sorry for the glare, that you can implement quickly. But in the book, I talk about this idea of your reality check partner and your accountability partner. These are going to be people that have to be part of your team. If you don't have this in place yet, you got to have folks that can be on your side that will help you get the support that you need. And so in the book, I talk about first the accountability partner. So they are going to be someone, it can be involved. They could be a doctoral student at your university or somewhere else that can just help hold you accountable to the goals that you have set for yourself. Because it's something that when you're trying to do it yourself, sometimes we can just lose sight of the goal, and you need someone to kind of stay on you in terms of getting this thing done. Shout out to my guy, Dr. Larry Walker. He was my classmate at Morgan State University when we were doctoral students. And that's what we did. We first met as doctoral students in orientation. We just said, hey, we're going to support each other through the process. And now 12 years later, 13 years later, we, earned our doctorates, successful professors, all these things, right? And that was because we had this accountability structure and we read each other's work. You got to have that component, right? So that's a critical component. I go more in depth again in the book about what that all entails. But then the second component of this is not only your accountability partner, but you also have to have what I call your reality check partner. And so in the book, I talk about this concept I developed, having watched so many doctoral students experience it. I call it dissertation intoxication. And so what that entails is that when you're a doctoral student who has been so focused on your dissertation for so long, sometimes you can lose sight of everything else that's happening in life. And so because of that, I say you become intoxicated with the dissertation process. And so for some of us, it makes us hyper-focused. For other folks, it makes us delirious. And so sometimes we just fall off on everything else. So when you're experiencing this dissertation intoxication, sometimes you might have loss of sleep. You might, not be having enough time with your friends and family. Like you haven't had that balance, right? And it becomes really important to finishing your process. And so when you are experiencing this thing, you have to have a reality check partner, which I define as someone who will be the person to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, take a break because you are being ridiculous right now. You need to step back from this. And luckily I had that throughout my process. I too went through some of this when I was as a doctoral student. For me, it happened more so during my coursework phase because I was a K through 12 special education teacher. I was taking, 3 classes a semester. I was coaching the men's varsity basketball team. I taught online. I was an adjunct professor, and I had a private music studio. I still had one student. Shout out to Supreme, was one of my guys. Now he's an adult now, which is crazy. But I worked with him for years, as a trumpet instructor. And so with all those experiences, at one point in time, I was, waking up at 6 a.m., going teaching my students, finishing about 3 o'clock, then driving an hour and a half to Baltimore to go to class. I would stay there from like 4 to 10 on one night a week, and then the other night I'd be there till about 7:30. But on that late night, I'd be there till 9:50 or so. Then I would drive an hour back home, eat, do something about midnight, go back to sleep, wake up again, do it all over again. If I had a game for, the varsity basketball team, I had to go to the game. So all that stuff and practices, I had to negotiate and figure out all those things, right? So I had all this stuff going on. But at one point, I had left the house with the refrigerator door open, the phone off the hook, and the front door open to our house. And my wife, Renee, shout out to Renee, she is co-owner of Done Dissertation. So when you work with us, you'll be getting a chance to connect with Renee as well. She was like, look, Ramon, like, you got to stop and figure something else out. And so you need that person. So you need that reality check partner who is going to hold you accountable and who is going to help you just have a sense of, normalcy in this process, because it can overwhelm you and take you over. And I've seen a lot of people burn out when they do that. And so that's another resource. If you want to finish quickly, you need a community. When folks come into our Velocity Culture program, that's exactly what we provide. Because we're not only just, checking in on you, but we want to make sure that you are whole as students, because we've had instances where one of our clients, for example, wrote their whole dissertation, sent it to the committee, and the committee wanted them to go back and collect more data. And I remember that particular office hour call, that student was distraught. And so part of having a community is you check on your community. So literally after that call, we had our office hour call, I called the client up and said, hey, I just saw what happened. I want to check in with you. And, I think that meant a lot to the person. I really think that it's important to what we do at Done Dissertation. It's just not about getting you all done with this process. We want to make sure we keep you all as whole as possible, because you all have been in this program, and many of these programs will try to tear you down. And so we wanted to build you up. And that's a very different approach to doctoral students support that you don't often get as doctoral students in your program. And so that's part of the magic and the value that we provide in our Velocity coaching program. And so if you are someone who is interested in getting that support and being in that type of community that wants to uplift you, then I would invite you to apply to the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. You can learn more and apply by scanning the QR code that is here on your screen, or you can go to www.velocitydissertation.com. And again, for those of you all just tuning in, today's episode of From ABD to PhD show, we are talking about the 3 resources you need if you want to finish your dissertation in 1 year or less. So if you're someone who is not interested in finishing quickly, just go ahead and skip to the next video, or send this off to somebody who wants to actually finish quickly. But if you're someone who wants to finish quickly, keep watching. And so far we talked about 2 of the resources that you're going to need to finish quickly. First one is that you need a plan. The second one is that you need a community. The third one that you need is one that's often under-discussed and often underappreciated. And that is having a guide to actually finish your process. Because as a resource, sometimes you all have, tried to finish your dissertations, and sometimes you've gone astray. It's particularly as first generation doctoral students, right? So if you're a first gen doctoral student, let me know in the comments, right? Just put first gen doc student in the comments, just so I know kind of where you are. But I know for me, when I was a doctoral student, I didn't know anything about this process. I'm the first one in my family to get a doctorate. So a lot of this stuff I entered the doctoral program with was pretty blind. I shout out to my godmother, Dr. Payne, Dr. Frida Payne. She told me about what the doctoral process was like, but it's something different when you go to experience it. And so, it's something about when you're in coursework, you're getting acclimated to, being a doctoral student. It's simple, right? And you feel like, hey, I got it down. But it's something that happens when the switch happens when you get to the dissertation process. And it's just like, all right, go figure it out. Like, work by yourself, become this quote, independent scholar that I hear a lot of students say to us about what their committee wants them to do. But it can be very difficult when you're trying to do this. And we just know, and especially when you don't understand what the process is, a lot of times this can impact your journey. And what I want to do is during one of our events, Dr. now Ron Miller, at the time he was still a doctoral student, but now he has since finished his doctorate. He's one of our clients. Dr. Ron Miller, shout out to you, Dr. Miller, mentioned this idea about the importance of having a guide. So I want to share the perspective of Dr. Miller so you can kind of hear about, his thoughts about what a guide meant and how the program like ours was able to support him and why having a guide is important to finishing. And so I'm going to bring up Dr. Miller, and you can check out and listen to what he has to say about the importance of a guide.
You don't go on a journey that you've never been on before that's this mysterious without some kind of guide. The professors are not guiding you through it, they're teaching you through it. So this program has put a guide on the journey with me that tells me, hey, this spot over here, you might want to do this. This spot over there, as Tiffany was saying, you need to do this. So here's a template for it. Fill it out, work it out, send it out. This whole program to me has been exactly where I needed to be when I needed to be in it. So for me, the money spent, everything I'm learning from the group, and then taking that back to the school, I'm just sitting down waiting. Why is this happening? Why do I got to rewrite this? Oh, Dr. Goins explained that. Dr. Ravelis told me about that already. This is why. Okay, cool. Got it.
When we consider these things and we start thinking about that process, the guide is so important. I always give the analogy about like how as a doctoral student, you're often going to be, there's a car that's happening, there's a journey that's happening. And, when you're a doctoral student, you're in the back seat, right? And your professors are in the front seat. They're driving the car, they're getting you prepared, they're telling you all the things, they're kind of give you the unspoken curriculum of how to navigate the process, your doctoral program. And then it comes to a point as you start to get closer to finishing coursework, then you start to approach the passenger seat. And as you're working on your, starting to approach your proposal, it gets to a point where it makes that shift where you now to actually need to start becoming and going into the driver's seat and practicing your driving skill set. And where your chair is actually in the passenger seat helping guide you, and then the committee's in the back seat. What happens for many of the clients that we know that work with us and are successful in our program is that oftentimes they are going through their process in a car in the driver's seat with no GPS, no phone, no way to contact anyone, and their chair and committee is absent and not even in the car. And for many of you all, it can be very frustrating and feel lonely as you get through that process. This is why we know when we have helped to support our students in our program, why they finish is because we're able to be that guide for them. Whereas we are able to jump in and say, all right, here first is like how you take back control over the wheel, because I know you don't know where you're going. And then from there, it's like, here's the strategy on how to get your committee back into the back seat for you. Here's how to get your chair back into the passenger seat so that you have a full car load that can take you on your journey. And then we're going to prepare you 4 steps ahead so that you can avoid parts of that journey that your chair might take you on that might still slow you up. And so this is the importance of having a guide, and why our doctoral students have been in our program, been so successful, because they have had that guide along the side. And again, we are not doing the work for you. We are here to support, and we are here to guide and help you work with your chair and how to build that support. Part of that conversation we have with our clients sometimes is also about, as a guide, also saying, all right, now might be a time to actually let go of that chair because they are not serving you in the way that you need at this point. We've had a number of folks who come through doctoral programs where their chair is just doing things that are ridiculous and making them jump through all these hoops. And when the student jumps through the hoops and navigates whatever they've asked them to do, they create a new hoop and barrier. And so we know that's the case. And so we help our students sometimes as a last resort to say, you know what? All right, we got to move on from this chair. And here's the way to do it. That's the most politically savvy, so that you don't blow up your whole process and then literally, take the engine out of your car, if I kind of continue with the car analogy. And so these are some of the things that you all have to consider about finishing. And these are part of the resources that you will need if you want to finish quickly. So you got to have that guide to finish, especially if you've been stuck in your way and support and you're not having access to your chair and committee as much as you need them to be. You're going to need a guide at some point if you're trying to finish within 1 year or less. And so if that is you and you're ready to finish and you just want to know how and have that community, I would invite you to apply to work with us in our Velocity coaching program. You can learn more by scanning the QR code or visiting www.velocitydissertation.com. In our program, we literally have a curriculum set out to help you to kind of navigate all the processes going through the dissertation, as well as we have accountability when you come to our office hour calls and writing support. So we actually will read and look at your work so you get feedback before it gets to your committee. So literally we thought through everything that you would need to get your dissertation done. So if you're ready to get done and you need support, I'll just invite you to apply to work with us at www.velocitydissertation.com. And I just want to say thank you all for everyone who has tuned into this episode of From ABD to PhD show. I hope you'll find immense value out of this. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and click the subscribe button if you aren't subscribed to us, and follow us all over on social media. We are on a campaign to at least get to 1,000 followers on all of our social media platforms. So wherever you follow us or know where we are, please hit the follow button. It would be extremely helpful to get more eyes on the work that we are doing. And we do these workshops, so we will come to your university as well. So if you're someone who's interested in bringing done dissertation to your university and your doctoral program, feel free to shoot us a message and DM wherever you have access to us on social media. But again, if you're looking to get the support that you need to finish, this is the link right there, y'all, www.velocitydissertation.com, or scan the QR code that is there, right there on your screen, so that you can get this thing done. And so with that said, I want to say thank you again for watching this episode of From ABD to PhD Show. I'm Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation. I look forward to seeing you next time on another episode. And as always, let's get these dissertations done, because you have lives to transform, communities to transform, and most importantly, you have your own life to transform. So I look forward to seeing you all soon.